Good morning, everybody. It is a marvelous day to be a Christian. Rev Rick here with you with Broadman Baptist Church, and I want to talk to you today on this very special Lord's Day, because they're all special. I want to talk to you about what we call corporate worship, more simply, going to church. Why do we need to go to church? Corporate worship is designed to move the meditation of your heart from an inward type relationship with God to an outward one where you can share with the community of your brothers and sisters in Christ. It is a God glorifying praise when Christians gather together in His name. And of course, we know when two or more gathered in His name, then He's there. And who wouldn't want an experience with God? And you get one every time you have a church gathering, whether it's at the building or other places. The community is incredibly important. The gospel is very clear about family, but beyond that, your Christian brothers and sisters are part of your family. And so regularly meeting with them in fellowship is a God-glorifying praise. Every day, there's lots of things for us to do and to think about. There's things that we can complain about every day, and then there's things that we could be thankful about every day. These two themes, either complaint or gratefulness or gratitude, kind of are the two sides of our heart to a certain extent. You know, Paul tells us in 1 Thessalonians that we're to always be thankful. Of course, he also says we're to always be rejoicing and continually praying. And just last Broadman word, I talked to you about having a grace-filled heart, which is one that is not just experiencing a change of behavior, but experiencing a heart level change in life. So with that and that understanding of grace, the next step is to understand the community. The reason that we have to sort of talk about this complaining versus grateful attitude when we're talking about corporate worship is because they form very fundamentally different views of the world, and it expresses what's in your heart. These two views are also fundamentally different ways of viewing yourself. You know, there is the biblical worldview that we're supposed to carry with us. Then there's that worldly view that can sometimes muddy us up because while we're not of this world, we certainly have to be in it, and it's a little hard sometimes to not get some of it on you, really. We should spend time humbled by the myriad of things that there are to be grateful for in your life, things that you regularly enjoy and that we really don't deserve. You can't really make an argument that we deserve any of the things in our lives. So how often then, for the very simple things in your life, do you whisper thank you to God or to another believer, part of your community, thanking them for what they do in the kingdom? Saying thanks to those around you is very important so that they know that you appreciate them, but it also emboldens them, empowers them to continue the work that they're doing alongside of you, and you continue your work alongside of them. It is an army of God. We are part of a royal priesthood, and so there is nothing there indicating that we are supposed to be separate from each other. We are, in fact, designed to be a community of believers that then spreads the gospel of peace throughout the world. If you take a look at complaint, it's really rooted in the way that you view yourself, and it's really an identity issue. Let me explain. If a believer understands the grace of God and understands that absolutely everything in their life comes from God, and that God is always working out his purposes for good in your life, then that should spur a sort of perpetual gratefulness to God, and then leave little room for complaint. But if you don't understand those things, then it is an issue of the heart, which makes it an issue for you and how you view yourself. If you think about things that way critically, with complaint, you reduce your active field of concern down to just what you're experiencing and what you see and what you think is going on, and at that moment that you're complaining. So that then tends to make you a little bit myopic or singular of vision about Christianity too, because you're not seeing the bigger picture. If you allow yourself to do this, you'll be constantly focused on what you see, what you want. It can lead to an inflated sense of what you think you need, and you'll be all too conscious of how you feel, and so then that can lead to grumbling because, let's face it, getting through any given day will present many opportunities to have something to complain about. So, with community and understanding community and your place in God's community, particularly your local congregation and then the circle of folks that you're in outside of that, with that understanding, you then have a much larger view of things, and the individual items that come along in any given day, week, or month that cause you concern or disrupt your sense of things don't lead to complaint. They lead to introspect on what you individually as a Christian can do as part of the larger community. That's worth repeating. It turns the focus from you and what you see and what upsets you to one of what can you do as part of the larger community of God to bring about heart change. Behavior change is temporary. So what we are concerned about is bringing about heart change both in us and those we interact with. So first, as a sinner, we should always assume that we don't deserve anything. We deserve God's wrath, if anything. So it is an act of outrageous love and grace that he has turned his face from those things, and he's turned towards mercy and kindness and love. If you view the world that way, and you view the events of the world that way, you can understand that you would not be grumbly or complaining. You would see yourself as part of God's kingdom, the larger whole of God's kingdom, one of his children that he loves very much, that he cares for and protects. And so you would then naturally be grateful and have an air of gratefulness and thankfulness about you, and not one of criticality or complaint. So this is where corporate worship helps profoundly, because the regular gathering of God's people for worship shifts your meditation from yourself and how you see things, and perhaps the complaining that might go along with that, to reminding you sort of even confronting you with who you really are, and that is another preacher, a priest in God's army, a herald of the gospel, and one who's been given special gifts to do that work based on who you are and who you are as part of the community. So as the gospel then lays out your mission based on the teachings of Christ, it also puts praise in your mouth. And that is really a very good thing. I want to encourage you to take a look at why you might not be going to church. And for those of you who do go regularly, understand deeper why it's important. Not just to hear a sermon or for you to have an experience. It really is a gathering of priests and preachers, because every single Christian is a preacher of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So it is a God-honoring thing. It is a faith-based thing. It is a demonstration of love, and it is very necessary for the life of a Christian. If you want to dig into this a little bit more for some more encouragement, Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 9 is a good thing to read. For now, I love you. Have a wonderful day. And until we meet again, God bless.